everyone. Hope you're doing all right. I have forgotten to set up Len Clampett's email address for folks. Len, as I told you the other night, has been in hospital. I'm not sure if he's got out today or not, and I'll need to do a little bit of investigation tomorrow on that. But I'm just trying to dig it out right now because a couple of people have contacted me. I'm just trying to search through my emails. You think it'd be easy to find, but look, I might have to get to that at the end of the show because we do have a bit on tonight. First of all, if you've been watching this show this week at all, you've discovered that I've tried a couple of times to talk to Grant Piper, who is heading up the farmers heading to Canberra for February the 6th. Now, the rally is, well, hang on. Let me let Grant tell you what it's all about, because he's recorded something and uploaded it. So this is probably, in his own words, the best thing to do. If it plays. Come on, baby, play.
G'day. We've got the Reckless Renewals Rally coming up next week, Tuesday the 6th of Feb, down in Canberra. And our focus on that is the whole idiocy of this crazy plan to power the country on so-called renewables, which won't work technically. And economically, it's going to cost trillions of dollars. They still haven't worked out all the problems of how they're going to get it to work and make it stable. There's also the local environmental destruction. And if you're looking at reducing emissions worldwide, well, these just bring emissions forward, bring consumption forward. They're a net loss for the total environment of the planet if you're worried about emissions. There's lots of interest. We've got a great speaker lineup. It's a full day. We've also got a lot of interest from other groups that have other issues that they're upset about. And this goes, whether it's the digital ID, whether it's misinformation bill, whether it's the COVID Royal Commission, whether it's the war on cash and the whole banking crap. I mean, there's so many things. Everywhere you touch and interact with supposedly your government and bureaucracy, it just doesn't work, and it is nonsensical on so many levels. And we need to change all that. But, a war is one battle at a time. And just like The Voice last year, maybe we're prosecuting, the renewable energy net zero ideology. And that's something that we are working on now. And that's the focus of the day. Maybe if we crack that one, and I think we can, then the other issues will fall one by one as well. So we need everyone working together and moving in the same direction. I don't want to drive anyone away. We've all got to work towards changing the government and making it work for the people and making it work for Australia. And that's my focus. But we've got to take one step at a time, but we have to be persistent. We have to show resolve. And so I want everyone to join with us and do that strongly, resolutely, and peacefully. There will be provocateurs there. But don't bite. Don't bite. Play a straight bat, and let's just put the pressure on the government and the parliament and the bureaucracy, because they are our true enemy. Repeatedly, they do the wrong thing by us, so they need to change their ways. That's the first thing. So come along and make a noise, and let's keep pushing on this. Thank you.
Hang on, let me remove that. That'll make that a bit easier. And let me just shut that window down so the bloody noise stops. There you go. So that's straight out of Grant's mouth. He's loaded that up onto YouTube, and I would have been able to give you the address had I not just shut it down. But from the man's mouth, that's what the rally is all about. We're heading there. Freedom Broadcasting Network will be there. We'll be streaming it in one form or another, and the plan at this stage will be to stream it to the Cairns News website or Rumble channel. Now, depending on what power is available, what access we've got at the site, we will provide either a multi-camera shoot with complete audio and all the bits, or we'll do the best we can with batteries and a couple of cameras. We're just a bit unsure of whether or not the broadcast centre will actually be allowed anywhere near the protest. If it is, great, because we can set up our gear and operate out of the bus. with our own power. That would be very useful, but if we can't do that, then we're reduced to running around. I will have a Galactic Larrikin with me. Rob's coming down to help, so looking forward to seeing him again. And we're looking forward to heading down to Canberra. So February the 6th, 10 a.m, and there is a huge speakers list. I don't know if I still have it available down here to share. It is there. I might try and remember to put that up at the end. It starts at 9:45 with Reveille. It ends at 6 p.m. with the last post, and in between, I haven't counted them, but I've got to say there is 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's got to be 40 speakers lined up across the day, if not more, and in 10-minute intervals from 10 a.m. So love to see you there. Bring a chair, and if it's a sunny day, bring something to keep you in the shade a little bit. No, I'm not going to say that. I was going to suggest you bring a lot of aluminium tin foil, but and pack it inside your umbrellas to shield. But that would be ingenious. No, it wouldn't be ingenious. It would be incongruous of me. So I won't do that. Tonight, a very serious matter. I would wager that what we're going to discuss tonight about happening in South Australia is happening behind the scenes at one level or another in every state and territory of this country right now. South Australia, it seems, are going to be the first ones to try and conduct what seems to be a secret election. Now, Mark Aldridge is coming in to join us, so great to have you on, Mark. Lovely to see you. Hope Adelaide is treating you well this evening. Mate.
It is, and I was, as soon as you introduced that, I started thinking about the aluminium foil before you even said it. So I was over in Canberra last time, so yeah, it is.
Right, you know what I'm talking about then.
Yeah, I did.
Mate, what the hell does the South Australian government think it's doing? Can you explain to the people? Well, maybe give a little bit of background to yourself here to begin with. I've got written down here the serial political candidate, but there's more to you than that.
Oh, the serial political candidates, media have used that for the last decade. Funnily enough, when I first got involved in politics as a candidate, it was going back too long. I was young and handsome. That's how long ago it was. And interestingly enough, Interestingly enough, back then when I first got into politics, the media were reasonable. I say reasonable, and so I was on TV all the time. Everyone knew me, and so a lot of those fights that we took up in those times were for the farmers. They were for all sorts of things like democracy and so forth. So when I first ran for an election, interestingly enough, I think it's 24 years ago, I ran as a federal independent. It was then that I realised that democracy was failing us, and one of the biggest issues with democracy was the state Labor Party were worse than the state Liberal Party. So there's been an attack on our ability to cast a free and informed vote for a very long time. What's happening now is outrageous, and of course, we all just went through the referendum in October of voting yes or no to a voice in the Constitution, and of course, I stood pretty highly for that, and set up a website, Facebook page late in the piece, and we had millions of hits. And I come from a unique background because when being around politics for so long, you try and find ways of fixing things or coming up with ideas or educating yourself quite in depth. So I actually speak for and work with Aboriginal people on a regular basis, and I'm spokesperson for an Aboriginal organisation. So I've kind of got a two-pronged approach. I've learned from the elders at the Tent Embassy. I sat on the Law Council for the Aboriginals and work in South Australia. So it's hard for me, this whole yes/no thing, until they said they wanted to change the whole chapter of the Constitution, and I realised straight away this wasn't a token effort to give them a better voice. It was about control, and my suggestion would always have been that they wanted to control the power the Aboriginal people have in terms of land, and that's been my suggestion throughout the yes/no vote. And of course, in South Australia, the no vote got up quite substantially. We had a 70-odd% no in South Australia. Quite a
the
solid
national
one.
average, I think.
And what makes it worse is that the people voting yes were misled, and we all know that. They were totally misled. And in fact, the campaign to mislead people was massive. I've been around a long time. I have never seen them pull out so many, famous people and media and everything you could do. We were having a lot of trouble with being shut down ourselves on social media, as you know. So anyway, that campaign's over. It was a resounding no across Australia, and then the Labor Party in South Australia decided they're going to go ahead and do it anyway, and they're going to do it by holding what they're calling a voice election, which we would call don't like the term black, but I'll say a black parliament in South Australia. The numbers will be very similar to our parliament, so there'll be, I think it's 46 new elected Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander members on the voice, and one director or something like that, like a leader of the pack, right, so to speak. He's already chosen. I do know his family well, and it's debatable as to whether you do something anyway that's colour based or race based in any respect in terms of Parliament, because we elect a Parliament, the Aboriginal people stand alongside us and we vote for people. The system might be a bit of a failure, but we have people to confront and ask questions and lobby. And we know that the Liberal Party and Labor Party are very left-leaning now. I'm not sure there's a difference between the two.
Somebody shot the right wing off the duck years ago.
Yeah, it's so far left now with the Greens that the Aboriginal people get a very, very good voice. And in fact, there's a huge industry all around Australia, if you're not aware, particularly in South Australia, that hires Aboriginal people only. It's a big industry, and you've got to consider that we've got, I think, 40-something thousand people that identify as Aboriginal in South Australia, and we're about to have 46 people or 47 people to represent them. That's 1 per 1,000. It's quite massive. Now,
but isn't
where
there
this
also
gets interesting?
Isn't there also an issue with those Indigenous folks that qualified to vote in this Black Parliament election? Well, some folks aren't registered with the AEC to begin with, and may never have been in their entire life.
Well, the state, there's something really creepy and wrong with this whole election process. Elections are important to me. I've studied them for a long time. And the process is so broken. I mean, they're saying that you have to be enrolled as an Aboriginal voter. So they can't just take the electoral roll and somehow identify who's Aboriginal descent and who's not and who would qualify. So the Aboriginal people themselves have to reapply and under some, the SEC, which is State Electoral Commission, don't even appear to know how to do this. And they've got until the 12th. So they've got 10 more days to be able to enroll to vote. And then if approved to be on the roll, or the black roll, or the Aboriginal roll, or the racist roll, whatever you want to call it, everyone will have their own names. If you're approved, then you can nominate, but you still got to nominate by the 12th.
Yeah. So there's
nothing happening here in the media. There's no signs up. There's no. Well, it's not just no way, but if you jump the hurdles to be able to vote, and then you want to run as a candidate, the candidate process is flawed as well, because it says you can't have a criminal history. Now, I think if you look at the court system, I mean, if you've been done for speeding, that's a criminal offence, for instance, say. And Aboriginal people throughout history have tended to, and people don't always believe this, but the court systems tended to step on them a bit harder than they do the white folk, for instance, say, especially the kids. So the chance of a bloke that's an elder, someone that's been through all the processes of growing up and becoming an elder, may not be able to nominate because they won't fit the right criteria. And the Labor Party are pushing for young fellas to get involved. And I suspect here that they're going to play this out and control who gets onto the voice so that they can use the power of the voice, as they're calling it, to do their own bidding. And the power of the voice doesn't sound like much, but it is quite powerful. The land rights ability in the courts, which I followed for about 20 years, is very, very powerful. I could explain it. It's quite detailed, but it goes back to the first settlers, and there's a loophole in the law that empowers Aboriginal people on land. And at the moment, they don't abuse that. In other words, if I can give you an example, or should we just, I don't want to go off topic too much, but here in Adelaide, there's a big, massive subdivision, which whilst they were building it, they found lots of bodies. The bodies would be ancient or ancient Aboriginal burial ground or something like that.
Yeah, 150 years plus kind of thing.
Yeah, that kind. Well, I suspect probably massacre stuff or something, but they're kind of hushing all that.
Right.
And so, for instance, sake, they've stepped in and they want the bodies just left where they were, put them back in the ground, right? So that's what I've been helping them advocate for. Put the bodies back in the ground, put a park there, run the rest of the subdivision around it. That's what happens normally.
Put a park there, don't put a building on top of them.
Who would want to live or work in a building anyway that's on top of a burial ground? But so that's all they're asking. So then they don't have the sort of powers that some people might think. They can't just move on there or whatever and do as they wish. But the powers exist, and the powers could be expanded. And if they were expanded, for instance, say it could affect a farmer, it could affect, as we saw in WA, the attempt in WA to bring in a similar thing with the Aboriginal people. And so if this voice gets up and Labor have controlled the process and who gets on board, then we have a serious issue issue in South Australia. Any legislation, any bill, any legislation, any spending, anything passed through Parliament must, by the way of this legislation, must go before the voice or the Black Parliament before it can proceed through or be agreed or passed. Now, that brings with it a host of issues, because I'm not being rude to the Aboriginal fellas that may or may not get involved. The vote also is interesting, is that there's 6 electorates spread out across the state. The city electorate has 11 candidates, and the country electorates have 7 candidates. Interestingly enough, you must, when you're voting in this election, the Aboriginal people are voting, they must vote 50% women, 50% men. Now, how you can vote 50% women or 50% men into numbers like 7 or 11 just confuses me from the onset.
Yeah, exactly.
And if people out there that do understand the way in which the mobs operate, or the nations, as they call themselves. So in South Australia, we have several nations, as they're called, or mobs, as you prefer to call them. And one of the very important things about these guys is they won't speak for another mob. If you go on, you can't go to another mob's land or start discussing what they can and can't do with their land, for instance, say. But the state governments whack these electorates, which aren't electorates based around mobs or nations. They're just a set of electorates set up. So, you vote from what area you're in, not the electorate, not the mob you're from. So if you're living in the city of Adelaide, you have to vote for someone from the city of Adelaide. But
not Cooper Pedy where you were born.
It's not how it works. My advisor, I'm starting up a party, so I've got a couple of the senior lawmen to come on board the party to advise on this, and they can't see how it could even work. And surprisingly, I phoned around last week and spoke to some of the elders in Adelaide and the different mobs, and no one even knows this election's happening. And I've asked a couple of senior people I know that are go-getters, good people, and I said, "Will you run it? Have you tried arranging to run?" And they said, "We didn't even know you had to have special process to enrol." So if they don't know there's a process to enrol, they won't know to run as a candidate. I suspect Labor will put in the amount of candidates only that are required for each area, and that there won't be much debate or robust democratic process.
I agree. Just a lot of nodding of heads and grabbing of brown paper bags, I suspect.
Well, it's frightening because of their power over land. Because we've seen we've all seen, I don't know why I'm even saying this, but we've all seen state Liberal, state Labor, federal Liberal, federal Labor doing all they can to control every aspect of our lives for a long period of time. In fact, right down to the degree of, indoctrinating our children in the schools to learn all sorts of rubbish that's not true. So you can't give those sorts of people the power of the Aboriginals' ability to intervene on land rights. That's my opinion, particularly for the farmers.
Yes. So it has the biggest implications for them above all, I would have thought. And what happened in Western Australia sort of proves that.
Well, it does. If we've got a farming property out here and they're about to plant a crop and the Aboriginal people say, sorry, we don't want to have a crop there, or whatever it might be, or we think there's artefacts there or whatever, they can slow it, the process quite considerably. I think it might be worse than that, and I'm not really sure what it is, but we should all be very concerned that we're about to have in South Australia one of the largest democratic elections of its kind. The thing that we're not being told also, which flies over people's heads, is there's a serious cost to doing this. You've got 46 or 47 elected members. Not many of them are going to understand the processes of debating legislation, reading and understanding legislation and bills and things like that. And they're going to need advisors. So you've got 46 or 47 people that are going to need advisors, jobs going to get paid for. We've got an election process. Election process is not a cheap thing. And why would you hold an election process right across the state with all the polling booths open and everything when some areas will have 3 people only, that would be possibly enrolled?
Yeah.
Just frightening stuff. The thing's just frightening. And the Aboriginal fellows I spoke to, they don't even know what to think of it. They've had no input into it.
Yeah.
There's just no input into it.
I'm sure their land council members will have a great idea of what it's all about, though.
Adelaide's kind of odd. Like, we don't really have a lot of it, as big as some of the other states. But in this last thing with this property developer, we found that the people that the government have chosen, the government choose who they'll listen to. So they listen to certain mobs where they, certain organisations, Aboriginal organisations, where they've had control on who's the leader of that or the voice of that particular organisation. And I was at a meeting regarding this, and it was a particular board. I won't go into details, big board, and the spokesperson for that was an Aboriginal fella. But everybody in the room and all the elders and all the people there was hundreds, didn't want him to do something, and he just refused. And in fact, it got that nasty, police had to come and remove him. So these organisations you hear of that are there for the Aboriginal people aren't necessarily supported by the local mobs at all. And I suspect this will be a similar thing. This voice, it'll be a body with a lot of power, imposition and controlled completely by the left of politics, and there'll be no benefit for Aboriginal people whatsoever. There'll be lots and lots of disadvantages, both financially and to democracy itself. And all sorts of questions arise. I mean, I was indoctrinated as an Aboriginal fella 25 years ago. I don't call myself Aboriginal. I don't go anywhere and call myself. I wouldn't enrol to vote in this, and I couldn't be a candidate in it, even though a lot of Aboriginal fellas here know me. I speak at all their rallies and so on. So I get to vote in a general election. If they get to vote for their own election, do they also get to vote in a general election? Are they getting a one-up? Is this fair? I also, when I was younger, I must admit, I always thought they should have some voice in Parliament. And my idea some 20 years ago with the 10 embassy was to have a token person or a token, so that in the lower house and upper house, there was always someone there chosen by their own mobs that could just make sure that their views were heard. And I kind of thought that was very fair. And we've seen over the years, the last few years, as I said when we opened, there's a lot of Aboriginal people in politics now, quite a large amount, and very educated ones like Jacinta and so on, Warren, good people, I know them well. And so there is voices in Parliament already. And we know that the Labor are in, the Greens are left. So there's always a lot of promotion of Aboriginal issues and support for them. Why they needed another process like this, I don't understand, because surely they would. And
well, won't this be the process? Won't this be the process by which they sneak treaty in?
Well, that's also another issue, because treaty could have been a better option than all of this. It could have been, if it was done in a way that suited the Aboriginals and suited Australian public, and it was voted through some sort of system where we all just came together, which would be a lovely thing to see in this country. A united black and white nation. But I think we'll have, if a treaty is even mentioned into the future, it will be totally corrupted by the left of politics for sure. I think there could have been at one stage. I worked on a treaty with the Aboriginal fellows years ago. It wasn't about land rights. It wasn't about all that sort of stuff. It was just about being heard and acknowledged. But I think we've gone so far past that now that we're just making it messy, and we're dividing the country. And we're already divided. The male and female are divided. Race is divided. I mean, they're doing anything they can to keep us divided, because that's a power play from the government. It always has been.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. So, here we are, a couple of weeks out from this. What can be done? How do we alert South Australians to what's being perpetrated right under their noses? And once they're alert to it, what can they do?
I don't think they can do anything. I spoke at a forum at Kapunda alongside Alex Antic and a few other reasonable major party senators and that, and they're in the same position as me. I mean, we can't really do much to stop it. It's a piece of legislation that's been passed. I don't think the Libs have got the balls or the power at the moment to do anything, although I think they would if they could. I think this is going to come down to us having to revoke this or review this or remove it legislatively.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Is this something that can be reviewed and then revoked if that's the way it's decided to be, unlike what would have come out of the voice, out of the referendum, in which case that was a constitutional amendment that we weren't going to be able to change? So is this what you're explaining to us? It sounds to me like there's nothing constitutional or lawful, for that matter, about it. So it should be open to challenge by any, you would hope, mandated elected government who came in next to change.
It can be easily. The problem would be this: at this stage, politically in South Australia, the Labor Party won't remove it. The Greens would always support it. If the Liberals got in, I don't think there's enough genuine, what would you call it, voices of the public. That's not it. Conservative voices, shall we say, conservative voices within the Liberal Party to bring that change. I think the local voters have to consider something a bit different. We're hoping to put forward some candidates that, if we could get a couple of lower house ones to get control, we'd ask for this to be removed, along with other things. But I think it has to be removed. I think it's dangerous and divisive. Race has no place in politics. I don't think race has any place anywhere.
I agree.
The race card, and we're all proud Australians, and that includes most of the Aboriginal fellas I know. And as much as they'd like to get their voice in, I think this is just a play not to do that, because if this was working properly, it would be all over the news here. It would be in the front page of the paper. We'd all be aware it's happening. The candidates that I know, or the guys I know in the Aboriginal community with good, strong voices that are sensible, would be on the phone to me going, "I'm going to run for an election. How do I do it, Mark?" I'm not getting any of that. And I've
there are
said to
plenty
about
of them. There are plenty of good people in South Australia who are able to do this. They're just not aware that they have to jump through hoop A, B, and C before the 12th.
Well, frightening. Imagine me running now. I've got no criminal history. I've got a long history of being arrested and all sorts politically, but I've always won the cases afterwards. But in amongst them, you've only got to have a speeding fine or a minor fine or something like that that could be used in the process of trying to enrol to run. I mean, federally it wouldn't affect me, but if I was Aboriginal fellow and trying to run in this, they could viably use those sorts of things to stop me from running. So, this is not a normal process. I think it's even a first past the post, by the way. I don't think it's even a preferential system that we're lugged with. Like the preferential system, from my point of view of 25 years experience in politics, is our biggest problem.
Because but first past the post in elections that aren't contested in any seat usually ends up with exactly the people that you select to be in those seats being selected for them. Because it's not like you're going to have multiple people in each of those places who are running against each other for the opportunity to be the candidate from that area.
I think optional preferential voting, like in council elections here, and you've got shires, but we've got councils here. Optional preferential voting works quite good, and I'd like to see that adopted federally and state. But I mean, that's a different argument than what we're talking about here. But in this case, it's the hush-hush. I mean, if the government aren't saying anything, that's because they've got nothing good to say. And we've all known that for a long time. So the fact they're being quiet, and what's getting me is the media are following suit. So I suspect they'll pop this through. There'll be nothing we can do. And then they'll control the whole process to make it look good. And then they'll start to try and roll this out in other states. And I think that's just totally dangerous to democracy. It's dangerous to the division in this country. There's not much chance of unity when there's, the blackfellas get two bites of the electoral cake or democracy cake, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really. And I don't think many of them.
I don't think many of them would disagree with what you're putting forward.
Well, I don't think they would either. I mean, they would. The inner city blackfellas that we saw pushing the yes vote heavily on TV, they would, but that's about control, The guys that are out there in the communities that care for their communities. I mean, I remember when the yes no vote was on, being appalled. They had the left took out a camera and they filmed some woman living in a tin shed with no running water and no aircon. Now, for Christ's sake, if you're going to go all the way out there, take an aircon, fix her power supply, and make sure she's got water. It is not a massive issue. And how can an issue like that exist when politicians are meant to have easy access from those that elect them, from the constituents? Surely there's been enough Aboriginal fellas going in and out of Parliament at the federal level for decades, telling them what they need. And so this problem between black and white is the fact that the black fellas aren't being heard, and neither are we. It doesn't matter what colour your skin is. The federal government don't listen to us, and the state government don't listen to us. And these poor fellas have got the same problem, and they think that some of them think they're being targeted. They're not being targeted. We're all being targeted. And if we could all unite and stand behind each other, we could smash this place and fix everything. As you know, it's always a numbers game. We saw that a couple of weeks ago with Woolies. Woolies lost a couple of billion off their stock market value because everyone stood up. It wasn't a hard thing to do. I mean, they'll gain it back because people forget, but people have got to learn not to forget.
Well, hopefully people will keep remembering things like this, because Woolies are still selling lamb for well over $30 a kilo, and the farmers certainly aren't getting. So nothing has changed in those big corporate retailers. They might have been a little drop and a bit of bad publicity when everybody said, "Oh, well, we're not going to shop there because of you're not stocking Australia Day stuff." Well, keep that up, folks. Keep that up, because they're still ripping off our farmers. They're still ripping us off.
I'll tell you an interesting story about 12, 14 years ago, not too far off topic. I had to go at Woolies, so I set up a massive protest outside Woolies head office here, which I did last week. I went and decorated their place with Australian flags just to make them feel better, to give them that loving feeling of being Australian. I had a big protest, and I brought all the farmers in that they were screwing. And the farmers brought their stock and said, we'll just give it away. So we had this massive rally, slowed the main road down to 10 kilometres an hour, and everyone stopped them. But, funnily enough, no one was a scab. Not one Australian pulled up there and said, I'll take those free potatoes, I'll take those free carrots. They handed money over. And at the end of the day, the farmer said to me, this is the most money I've made for my product in history, you know. So guess what? I opened markets, and we actually, I got up to 5 or 6 markets, and I've still got one. And then they came down on me, and I ended up going to High Court and losing, you know. But either way, that developed into something, and people backed me at the time, and it was fabulous. Woolies and Coles lost 15% of their income here in South Australia, and that wasn't hard to achieve. And in fact, people coming to the markets were buying better, cheaper, farmers were making more, and it was a much better atmosphere to shop in. You know, bring the dogs, bring the kids, you know. And so we can do all these things. We can fix all the problems in the world, except for maybe this one. I mean, this is a piece of legislation that's in place. We can't undo it. We could protest it. It wouldn't hurt to try and protest it.
And scrutinise every aspect of every decision, because somewhere in the background, if the government needs to get something through and somebody on that council or a number of somebodies on that council doesn't want to do it for whatever reason, the government has ways of applying incentive to get their way. And that's why they like to have the right people on those sorts of councils, let's put it that way, because those right sort of people on those councils will not only accept the incentive, they will gleefully accept it and probably ask for more. So the wrong kind of people get to be the representatives. And I think that's the biggest threat facing South Australia with this election and every other state, because as I said in the opening, I believe that this will be happening in every state and territory in Australia, and it will be happening in a subversive, secretive manner. You will not be told about it. Only those that they want to be able to nominate, want to be able to apply, will be given the heads up. And those who might be interested but are not, you know, the kind of folks the government wants to work with, they might be given a week to get all their paperwork in order and be able to submit to even be allowed to be a candidate. So it's going to be a very one-sided thing.
I think it gets worse because what I suggest might happen, and I shouldn't say this, but I suggest it's probably true, is that they'll have the voice, they'll make it sound pretty, but then they'll start using it for means that aren't in line with it, the structure or idea of it. They'll use it for land grabs, they'll use it for all sorts of things. And what they'll then do is they'll make it a black and white issue in South Australia. And then you're creating division and racism. And I mean, that's just disgusting. We don't need that anymore in this country. And that would make the outcome even worse, that the Aboriginal fellas don't get a decent voice, that this is controlled and not done properly. And then they get blamed for anything that goes wrong. And that's been happening for a long time, as you know. And there's some really, really good advocates for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people in South Australia I know of, and in Canberra, that are really reasonable. And then there's some that aren't so reasonable, that are radical, and they're the ones that tend to get the voice. And we need the good people to have a voice, the same as we do with the rest of Australians.
Veronique raises a point. Do you think this is almost apartheid?
I think it's something like that. I think that division is important to control us. They make us argue amongst each other, and particularly black and white. We forget to watch what they're up to, and that's happened a lot, as you would well know, during all sorts of campaigns, particularly COVID, where there were all special hidden agendas that we weren't meant to be privy to. And so lots of changes happened while we were watching our lives be destroyed. And I suspect similar things here will happen. And I'm not sure what the legal aspects are. I was speaking to my barrister, who's one of the advisors for the party, and I do a fair bit of law, so I'm in the courts on a regular basis for the last 20 years. I don't know if there may be processes that we can use to argue this is a faulty election at common law or something like that, and therefore the outcome's invalid. But I'm not sure. The legislation's poorly written. I've not seen anything so poorly written. They must have rushed it. So I suspect there'll be ways to undo it. possibly, but none of those avenues are cheap or easy.
Yeah. What's your message then to folks watching tonight? Mainstream media aren't covering this at all. So Mr. and Mrs. Middle South Australia, who are not awake in any way, shape or form, just a bit woke, what should we be doing? Should we be a concerted letter writing campaign to the Adelaide Advertiser? And will any of them actually meet the letters to the editor page, their criteria? Is this something that you can start ringing television station news departments about and saying, hey, listen, I want you to cover this because I want to know what's going on? Radio stations, breakfast shows, they're always taking listeners and looking for content. Well, South Australians, why don't you ring up your favourite breakfast show and have a bit of a talk there? I know in Adelaide, there are a number of great radio stations. I used to work for one of them, Go Triple M. But I don't think they're leading the ratings at the moment. I think it's Mix FM that'll be on top of the ratings over there at the moment with Ali, who I used to work with at Triple M years ago. Ring them up, bring this topic up, let the people of South Australia hear it, understand it, and maybe then you'll see some people on the streets complaining about it, protesting about it, and you'll see the South Australian government do that back.
Exactly.
That's all we see from governments these days.
I think everything you touched on is perfect. I mean, social media is big. We can get it out. You could have a meme that just says, did you know there's a new election coming? Did you know the Voice is about to start? Anything at all that catches the attention of people to do research and find articles like this and, not articles, but, these types of interviews so they can become informed. It doesn't hurt to push the media on it, that's for sure. Talkback Radio is fabulous because you can generally get onto Talkback Radio, 5AA here, and some of the smaller stations like 5PBA FM and so forth. They're usually pretty good. They'll give people a voice, depending on when you ring and which presenter you get here, and just get the word out. Particularly if I was trying to get it out initially to the Aboriginal fellas, because I figured if we're going to do this and we can't stop it, let's make sure it's not rigged and there's at least some black fellas get involved that are decent people. But none of them want to. They don't like it. They don't understand how it can have electorates. They don't understand why they have to apply differently. The AEC, the SEC, I went back on and had another look. I rang them. They won't talk to me, of course. I'm kind of not their best friend. And there's nothing to explain that you have to re-register separately as an Aboriginal candidate. And I'm not aware that you tick boxes that you're black or white when you apply to enrol, unless there was some system like that. But that would be open to all sorts. I mean, anyone could just tick, I'm Aboriginal descent. That wouldn't be enough for this process, I would suspect. And particularly if you're going to run as a candidate, they're going to do a federal and state police background checks on you for the last few years. I mean, that's heavy duty stuff. They don't even do that at federal level, just so you know. It's only if you're actually under a charge or declared bankruptcy under Section 44, or you're a foreign allegiance, so on. So this is just weird. The hush is weird, and that should be enough for people to be frightened by what's going on here. The fact is just nothing. There's nothing for us. There's no signs on the road. There's no vote. Make sure you vote for us. You would think that sort of process would be up and going, and there's not even anything from the AEC to say, we're going to set up polling booths here and there and there. Is it going to be postal polling, which is the last thing you want, the entire election covered by postal polling, which has not been very good to democracy in this country. I don't know. This is just dreadful. I'm glad you've taken the time to have me on, and I hope lots of people share this and listen, because it's something very important. And, I'm not totally opposed to some sort of system that gives Aboriginal people a voice on matters of concern to their particular communities. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to stop a dreadful decision by the Labor Party to ignore the will of the Australian people, to do something that's untoward, and with the total intention, and it seems obvious to me, of rigging the thing and destroying, the unity that we have pretty good unity between black and white in South Australia. Aboriginal people and white, but we're not anti. There's not a lot of anti here, and that's good. And I think it should be better. This will make it worse.
It strikes me as sort of a second-tier attack after Western Australia's attempt last year with, their absolutely imbecilic legislation that brought farmers and mining and everything else to a grinding halt. This is similar. They're just sneaking in a council with more power over more things. And when I say more things, over every decision the South Australian Parliament will enact. I think it's quite frightening. Mark, if we can help publicise this in any way here at the Voice of Freedom, then just reach out, mate, anytime in the next couple of weeks. And if I can urge you, it doesn't matter if you're in South Australia or not, as it turns out, you can ring a radio station and ask them to start talking about this, to say, do you know that there is this dark election happening? Oh, dark's probably a bad term. But that's what these things are known as, dark elections, okay? The elections the people know nothing about. They're very limited in knowledge, and it's got nothing to do with what colour the people are that are being elected or not elected, as it turns out.
I think you're dead set right. I think everyone, doesn't matter where you are in Australia, you can arc up. This is going to come to a place near you, and you want to stop it now in South Australia before it comes to a place near you. And you talked earlier about the farmers' protest, which I've attended quite a few of those. This is going to, if this is going to go wrong, they're the ones that are going to cop it, and they can't afford that. We've got farmers over here that can't produce because the state government went in and bulldozed their dams because it interrupted natural flow of water on their properties. Yeah. And they're screaming out to build more dams, and they're not allowed to. So, we have serious issues already here, and we can do without this, because that's the type of stuff they do, the whole environment and natural, crap that they spruce, saying that you put a dam on your house and you fill it from the roofs of your shed, you're interrupting the natural flow of water, therefore you can't have the dam. And they passed legislation, I think, just 12, 14 years ago, enabled them to go in with bulldozers and take out dams that weren't approved in a certain way.
My God.
And, people just forget this. They hear this horrible things are happening, and then they just forget about it, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And it's time now, guys. It's time now, Australia, that we've got to stand up a little bit more than we are, and unite better than we are, and make better decisions and invest our money more wisely than we have been to make things better. And it's programs like yours that help do that, and I really appreciate it. And I hope that all Australians share this, and I hope all Australians do make one phone call. 588, what's the number?
I can tell you that as soon as we're done tonight, the program will be, I'll send a link, and within an hour or two, it'll be up on the Cairns News website as well. Cairns News are very keen to look deeper into this story and talk more about it. So I've already spoken to people there. So they'll have a look at that as well sometime in the next 24 hours. And I dare say they'll reach out looking for your phone number with a bit of luck. So I look forward to seeing what comes out of that. But mate, we'll try together between Cairns News and ourselves. We'll try to get as many people aware of what's going on in South Australia over the next 7 to 10 days. And while there's probably nothing at this stage anybody can do about it, there is one thing you can do. You can complain loudly, and you can get your media, your mainstream media, to start letting you complain loudly. And if they don't, then start calling them out. And when the newspapers aren't printing the letters to the editor about how bad the radio station is not letting you have your free say, well, the radio station won't like that, let me tell you. But neither might the editor. So your letter might never make it. That's how, if they're working together, and you've got to remember, our mainstream media companies got a 100% tax rebate, and I believe they got it twice for 2 financial years. 100% tax rebate, so that they played along with the story. Don't expect they're going to become our friends anytime soon. Mark, I want to thank you very much for coming on, mate.
Thanks, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. And everyone out there, stand up, fellas. It's time.
Stand up. Exactly the way. Cheers, mate. Go and enjoy your weekend, and look forward to catching up when I come to South Australia next time.
I'd love to see you, mate. I'll buy you a beer.
All right. Yeah, excellent. Talk to you soon. Mark Aldridge from South Australia. So if you know anybody in South Australia and they are not aware of this dark election, secret election that is going to be held on the 12th of February, please send them a link to this show, because it's important that they're aware of it and the changes that it, I think, is invariably going to have on their lives. It's too late at this point to do much about it, but hold them accountable later, potentially. But right now, if it comes in, all you can do is keep eyes on them and keep calling them out when they're doing what they're doing. It's just a shit fight, isn't it? No fun at all. Folks, we are going to Canberra for the big farmers thing coming up on Tuesday of next week. Look forward to seeing you there if you're coming. Now, when I say we're going, that's what I mean. FBN is going. The Voice of Freedom, well, I'll be there, but the Voice of Freedom won't be playing any role at the rally. FBN, being the Freedom Broadcasting Network, is simply there to provide live streaming, if we can, to as many people as we can. And I have no input in anything happening on the stage. I am not speaking on the stage, and won't be doing anything. Now, I might, depending on what happens on Tuesday and how long it goes, all that kind of thing, I might be able to set up an evening show somewhere, 6 o'clock outside of the Parliamentary Triangle. We'll park the bus up somewhere in a park, maybe throw a barbecue on, bring your barbecue, bring your sausage, bring a beer. We might be able to put a show on, but I will be arriving in Canberra a bit sooner than the day, I hope. And I'll try and investigate somewhere, but I don't know Canberra very well to be able to set something like that up. I'd need to be helped a bit. So I will have a chat with Cass, who is recovering from her surgery. She or somebody she knows might be able to point me in the direction of somewhere we could do that, but that wouldn't be until after the event on Tuesday, and or possibly even Wednesday if there's anybody still going to be hanging around. The goal at this stage is to simply go to Canberra, turn around, come back again. At the moment, we don't have enough fuel to get to Canberra and back again. The farmers have, and this is, I'm very grateful for their help. The farmers have offered FBN some money for fuel. It's enough money for about a tank of fuel, which is great, but I'm going to need 3.5 to get there and back by this stage. I think might be 4, but if you would like to help us get down there, we'd love your support. You can donate at vofhq.com, and that will enable that I'll get home. If not, hey, listen, I'm just going to pull up on the side of the road somewhere. I've got a bed, and as well, without any fuel, the generator won't last long. So I guess when I go off the air for an extended period of time, you'll know why. But anyway, look forward to seeing you in Canberra. I'll be very busy during the time of the rally. You probably won't see me if the van is around, or we were able to get the bus close, which at this stage we probably won't be. We'll be stuck in the bus for most of the day because that's where all our control equipment will be for multiple cameras. If we can't get our vehicle close enough, then we'll be out there floating around somewhere, Rob and I, with cameras and whatnot. Love to see you, love to say hi. But we might have to whisper a bit because the microphones will be very close to us, and we want to be hearing what they're saying. So there's a few little things about that, but love to see you. And if there is the opportunity to catch up somewhere, maybe the Kingo. I haven't been to the Kingo Hotel for a steak since 1990. When was I in Canberra at 2CA and FM 104? I think that was about 1995. So there you go. Kingston Hotel might be a nice place to have dinner that night. If they still do it. Who knows? What else have I got here to talk about? I want to thank the guys at Cairns News for partnering up with us for, quite a few different things, as it turns out. We've got a bit coming up in the next 6 months or so together, and look forward to being able to bring you a lot more of their news. If you haven't already gone and checked out the Cairns News website, cairnsnews.org is the site. And I can tell you, there is some bloody great stuff on there, including if you were to, let me see if I can share this with you. Where am I doing that? Share your screen. There is a very good thing on their main page, or it's probably been booted down a bit by now. But if you happen to be driving for, I don't know, a long way on the way to Canberra, maybe you've got quite a few hours in the car. This is the COVID Royal Commission Terms of Reference inquiry. It was held yesterday in Canberra. This video is available on YouTube if you type in just that, COVID Royal Commission Terms of Reference, or go to cairnsnews.org and click on the link in their story about this and read their story. The story is bloody great. It'll précis 7 hours and 7 minutes of Senate questions and answers, a great many answers, from people who have submitted to this inquiry. And I can tell you that Julian Gillespie's submission to this inquiry is dynamite, and you've got to watch the Green senator in this place. That is just a moron. He asks Gillespie at one point, or asks the team that Julian Gillespie is part of, do they really believe in this conspiracy theory? Julian Gillespie's written 110 pages or more as part of his submission into this. Somebody mentioned before that there are 2,000 submissions. Yeah, well, yes, I would have preferred it if there were 200,000 submissions, but there wasn't, there isn't. And what are we going to do about it? Well, we can't submit anymore. What we can hope is that the power of the submissions from Julian Gillespie and others is enough to guarantee a genuine, open, wide-reaching, unhindered Royal Commission into the government's reaction to the spicy cough. One of the points that you should take great notice of is from a doctor, Dr. Prosser, who has suggested that there should be 3 to 5 royal commissioners in charge of this royal commission, because it is so broad, it needs to be so wide-ranging over so many fields that one couldn't do it. It would go for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, and it would get mired under its own weight. There is precedent for multiple royal commissioners acting on one royal commission, and Dr. Prosser has written quite a number of books about royal commissions in Australia and secret royal commissions, some you may not know of, that happened during World War II and weren't made public until well after World War II, as it turns out. At any rate, go and check that out if you are looking for something to keep you entertained over a 7-hour drive. Guess what I'm going to be listening to? COVID Royal Commission Terms of Reference Inquiry. Malcolm Roberts has posted it up on his page on YouTube, and it is available through the cairnsnews.org website with a really great story. If you don't want to listen to 7 hours of it, read that story, and it'll give you the highlights, which is probably the best thing. Some people have been asking me, I did say in a show a little while back that I was going to play a video about us, the unified solution, something that I made up, probably 2 or 3 years ago, and it just sort of sat on a hard drive somewhere. I loaded it up to YouTube, and it's just sat in the background somewhere. I loaded it up to Rumble, and it sat there in the background, and now I just use it as the filler on the Rumble channel that plays when I set up the show. That thing will just loop. It's a little over a minute. And it just loops, plays as a fill on Rumble until the show goes live. So some people who don't watch Rumble but watch the other channels have asked, could I play it here? So it's Friday night. We've just done a bit over an hour. So this is something I feel very strongly about, and it probably isn't my best work. But bear in mind, it's 3 years ago. But I think you'll get the sentiment.
Dishonest bastards. Bastards.
That's the sound of former leader of the Australian Democrats, Don Chipp, rolling in his grave. His party once kept us protected from them in our federal parliament by keeping the bastards honest. Now, there is no one to represent us in parliament, and no one to keep them, the bastards, honest. Don't vote for them again.
Dishonest bastards.
They are not honest. They support attacks on our lives our businesses, our privacy, our human rights, and now they support attacking our children. It truly is us or them. Who can stop this madness? The truth is, only us.
We are the solution, folks. I firmly believe that. We can only save ourselves. We have to put the petty differences and divisions that have been deliberately put between us by folks that Mark and I have just been sort of discussing aside and work together. Souls don't have colour. At least, not black and white. They've all got the same colour. Souls don't have different colours. We all agree this is a war. It is as much spiritual as it is kinetic. In fact, I think it's more spiritual than it is kinetic. Souls don't have colour. Use that filter when you think about the division that's being placed between us and who's placing that division between us. The old saying is, don't shoot the messenger. But in this business, what if the messenger is telling you something wrong, telling you lies, trying to change the direction, or to garner support for a different direction, which I'd actually support, as long as they're open about which direction they're going. Souls don't have colour. The sooner we all understand and embrace that, the better we are all going to be. Yes, we've got problems. Yes, there are bad eggs, black, white, yellow, brindle, blue. Doesn't matter. There are numbskulls, numpties, morons, dickheads everywhere. But without the division that's been put between us, we'll be able to lift some of those people up. Some may not be able to be lifted up, and we'll have to get used to that and make accommodations for it. But by and large, our souls need to come together and bring our bodies with them. Souls don't have colour. Unity doesn't have colour. We the people are all the colours of the world. We are the power. We are the strength. The sooner we realise that, we will make them accountable. But that won't happen while we react to those divisionaries, I'm going to call them, in our midst. I'm going to be attacked left and right for going to this farmers' rally by various different sides. And to be honest, I don't care. I'm not going as the voice of freedom. I am going as the bloke who pushes the buttons for FBN. FBN has a different hat to the voice of freedom, and I'll have that hat on while I'm in Canberra. That doesn't mean that over the following days, if I choose, there might be other things to talk about, I won't, under the voice of freedom, go back and have a look at some of the things that were said. But at the time, that won't be the case, because I'm going to be the independent broadcaster that we need. And sometimes that means I'm going to have to let people say things on a channel that I happen to have something to do with that I don't agree with and don't like. But the beautiful thing about that is FBN will let you get on the channel and have your say as to why you don't like that. There won't be censorship. There will be balance. That's what FBN's about. So before the argument, before the bullshit, before the fucking calls for piss ants and whatever else, yawn, yawn, yawn. Grow up, children. The sooner we all understand that there is no colour in a soul, and division is just going to out you. Come together. Let's do this. I'm sick of waiting, and I know you are. We don't have a media network. We've got a loose bunch of people gathered around who like to think they are, and they are, influential in their own way. If we can bring that group of people together, then FBN will be, I believe, a place worth supporting with your eyes and your ears. All it is going to try and wake you up with truth and honesty. And the amount of hassle that we get trying to get to air, potentially this weekend, maybe not, but in ongoing things that we do, will be an indication of whether we're effective or not. I've already had approaches in the last few weeks saying, oh, gee, Carl, can you tone it down? Can you not talk about this? Can you not sort of go this hard on that or this or that? No, I don't play that way. I will be conciliatory where required. And fair, and fairly so. If I've done wrong, if I believe I've done something wrong, I will own it. All right? Unlike many of our politicians. I'm not going to say all, but many. If I won't knowingly do wrong, but if I somehow get proved that my actions in some way or shape or form have been proved to be wrong, I'll be very upset, but I will apologize. I think you guys know, particularly if you've been watching me for a while, you know where my heart is in all of this. There should be no doubt of where my heart is and has been from day one when I started this show under the guise of None 2K. Day one, my mission hasn't changed. I am here to give you a voice, using mine if I have to. Nothing's changed. I am for the people, nothing else. I am not for deals. I am not for prolonging this bullshit. I am for finding solutions for the people, with the people. That's what I'm about. Now, if you want to find people who are like that too, please get them to join us. Get them to subscribe, because that's the only way we know that people like what we're doing. Give us a thumbs up tonight. I'm sure Sue's been extra busy in the chat tonight, hopefully promoting the fact that you can give us a thumbs up on whatever platform you happen to be watching us or listening to us on tonight. Would really love to have you in there. I have managed to star a few comments as I was going through the interview, so not too many, unfortunately, and I'm running a bit late, so I'll just go through these ones. Dusty, this is absolutely... okay, I should be going to day one. Well, Carl, got my mate the bronze X39 patches, got chronic back to pain, disc stuff, numbness, leg, whole shebang, 2 days of patches, heaps of energy, super alert and focused. Bloody great. That's excellent. Day 4, numbness gone, heaps more comfortable, back pain 1 out of 10 and still improving. Absolutely unbelievable. Well, that has been the story for many, many people, Dusty, and I'm really pleased that your mate's getting the benefit out of it. Unfortunately, I got an email today from a lady named Deb. She bought the patches, I think, for her father, who's got back pain issues. They haven't seemed to have had any effect at all. She's also tried the patches. She'd done a muscle in her foot. That hasn't had any effect at all, and she's asking for a refund. So I'm just going to find out how many patches there are left, and we'll sort you out, Deb. I don't want you to feel like anybody's robbed you or ripped you off. We've said right from the word go that these patches do not work on everybody. That is the risk you take. But if you feel that you don't have anybody else in your life with pain, you might be able to give them to share them with, to see if it works for them, to try and ease their pain. If you don't have anybody like that in your life, then by all means, get in touch. We'll figure something out. Just let me know how many patches you've got left, and I'll figure it out. Dusty, what else did you have to say? I heard Penny Wong has been given the Oh, well, she's hardly been told to disappear. We've got a couple of months until the senator is gone. Oh, nearly choked on that word. Yeah, I did mention submissions, Alana, and I believe you wrote one, so thank you very much for putting yours in. I too put a submission in, but I'm not sure that it was accepted. It might have been outside the terms of reference for the submission. I was made aware when I showed somebody of it later, and they said, no, I don't think that'll get through. So mine probably didn't get through. I hope you wrote it better. Looks surprisingly clear, Joe. Yeah, George, yes, I thought the same thing when we started tonight with the interview. It did break down there at one stage. In part, sometimes what happens with the degradation of the signal is how many people are viewing the show. So I pay various different amounts of money to stream to various different providers. And I think most of those levels that I stream at are either at the low or the mid level. It's because the more you pay to these providers, the more people can watch without interruption. It's essentially how much bandwidth they supply at their end. So I can usually pretty comfortably hold about 2,000 viewers live across the platforms. Usually, there have been times where I couldn't hold 200, but usually I can hold about 2,000 across the 9 or so different platforms, because it is streaming the video out to 9 different platforms. It's quite a drag, but if there are more than that watching, then that's when it starts to get a bit sticky, or you see the picture start to degrade a bit. That's something to do with the servers and the transmission, the load at the time. I don't help by having a show that runs at the peak time of day, when everybody is coming home and downloading emails and doing all that other stuff. That's why Starlink is so important, and it's not, well, it is impacted by that, but it seems to be fairly workable, although at the moment I'm running on Telstra. So we'll see. I'll be taking both to Canberra, and we know how well the cell signal works around Canberra when there's plenty of people there. So odds are we'll have to drag out Starlink, and that'll only work if we've got power. So odds are we'll have to drag that out to live stream. But I just want people to be aware that it is FBN that will be live streaming the event in conjunction with Cairns News, and thank them for being involved. They've given us a donation to aid with fuel to help us down there. And look, you've got to understand that the Cairns News does not have a budget, doesn't have money flowing into it in vast amounts or anything like that. So, they have to be modest in what they can do, as we are modest in what we can do without your support. So we are both looking to grow. That is why we are combining forces for this, and what we hope in the future will be many more interesting opportunities. And I can tell you, there are many more interesting opportunities in the background. The discussions that we have on a daily basis leading to some very interesting places. So the Voice of Freedom will be able to help bring those discussions to you. The Freedom Broadcasting Network will help bring the discussions of all of us to you, I hope. And look forward to getting your support with that. I will get some websites that you can go and visit and subscribe to now. There isn't too much on them. I might upload that Us video to them, and let you know where they are. And eventually I will ask you, well, I'll need you to subscribe, because we won't be able to live stream to a new, if you like, YouTube channel or a new Rumble channel without reaching a certain number or a certain level of subscribers. So it will be very important when I give you the websites to go to that you immediately run over there and hit the appropriate bells and whistles, because we will not be able to get the channel up and running if you don't. I mean, I'm sure it will happen, whether it takes a day, a week, or a month, or 2 months, or whatever the hell it takes. But it'll happen, and FBN will start populating not only stories that we get, but stories that Cairns News will be providing us as well. I hope that Cairns News may be in some form of position. We're trying to figure out how we're going to do it, to provide a news service a few times a day on our radio channel, which Vince is working feverishly on at the moment, and a mate of mine in New Zealand who's probably scratching his head saying, Carl's a dickhead. What's he doing? We've been talking about doing this, or he's been working on his end of it for now 3 months and waiting on me for stuff. And he's about to pack and move and come back to Australia. So I've got to get my finger out and get that sorted. So the website for the radio station can be organised. And, the radio side of it's all coming together slowly but surely as we speak. Aussie Sue, this is a frightening bit of news. Corrupt government in Canada has made new laws giving the so-called refugees can walk up freely to your home and say they want it. And if they refuse, the owners refuse, they could be jailed by the government. I don't know in what world we are living in if that is real. I do not know. How can that in anyone's world be real? How can any government that makes a law like that expect to walk out of Parliament and not be hung from the nearest maple tree by the people, the homeless people who paid for their house and land? It's coming to Australia, folks. Don't think it's not. It's only if we band together it can be stopped. Souls have no colour. Just a quick one. The Vietnam veterans are pushing government to have police arrest questions. Have you served or emergency service served when give a different arrest approach and alert the veteran help? I'm not really sure, Pete, where that's going, and I know you're not watching now, so I'll have to ask you about that. I'll give you a call maybe tomorrow and you can fill me in on that, because I'm interested in anything to do with Vietnam veterans. My biological father was a Vietnam veteran. And I'm very, very attached to you. You're a good mob of blokes. And in fact, Len Clampett, whose email address I haven't got up yet. Len Clampett is also a Vietnam veteran, and a truly, truly wonderful man. He has just had, let me search all my mailboxes and see if I can find his address. Unless he just sends me texts. I can't remember. Here we are. Let me see if I can just copy this and I'll post it up in the chat. As so many people have asked me for it. No, I don't want to send that. So if you want to send Len a get well soon message, please, I'm pasting now, post your emails to Len in the chat. His email address is, why hasn't it popped up? That's a bit weird. Is the chat now dragging along for some reason? Paste. fairgomate@icloud.com. If you can't see it in the post, fairgomate@icloud.com. That'll get a message to Len. If you don't know Len, I'll just let you know he's a true gentleman in his late 70s. He thinks at the moment that any heart issues he's having are, because he certainly hasn't been stuck with anything, he thinks it's shedding related, that's taken a toll on him. He did have issues with his heart last year, not like this. He actually had a small heart attack, but spent a fair bit of time in the KPU in Queensland. Anybody in the Vietnam veterans community will know what that is. And has been pretty well ever since, to be honest. And I saw him yesterday, and he was looking really well, and saying he was fighting fit, but I don't know that he could have walked me to the elevators. So I hope the plan was that he might be able to get out today or tomorrow or at some stage over the weekend. I'll keep you up to date. But if you'd like to send him an email and to get well, I'm sure he would love to hear you. fairgomate@icloud.com. We'll get a hold of Len. He's got a lot of friends in the community, including at the Cairns News. Help cheer him up. Would love that. I hope you have a great weekend, folks. I don't know when next I will speak to you, probably at some stage over the weekend from the road, just to let you know that we're on the road. I'm not sure whether or not I'll leave tomorrow night or Sunday, very early Sunday morning. The aim to be in Canberra at some stage Monday. So probably at some stage tomorrow I'll leave. give myself a little bit of leeway to get down there and find where I've got to park and set up, or park and then unload gear and drag it for 10 kilometres or whatever they're going to make us do. I might employ a few of your hands if you come along to help then. Anyway, if you're coming to Canberra, February 6th, 10 a.m, that's the place to be. And the Freedom Broadcasting Network will be streaming on the Voice of Freedom channels, because the FBN channel won't be up. But we will put it up on the Voice of Freedom Rumble channel at the very least, and quite probably the Nun 2K channel as well. But that will be entirely dependent on us having the vehicle to work out of. We need laptops and computers and all that sort of stuff to run that end of it. And otherwise, we'll be just working off a singular system and a lot of batteries stuck out the front of a stage somewhere. So look forward to seeing you. If you're going to be on the road, give us a toot, give us a wave. I'll see you at a petrol station somewhere. That'll be how it is. We're going to all, I know what we will all try and do while we make our way to Canberra. We will be very good people. Avoid the tolls if you can, because some of them can be quite expensive. But I guess the absolute most important thing is that we all avoid the dickheads. Have a good weekend.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!